voice of reason.
Industries that can lift this place. One of them is vehicle, cars.
I thought cars are being assembled here in this country today.
No. You know, let me try and bring a little bit of education in the manufacturing of cars. For me, if I want to be consulted by the government, that how do we approach, vehicular manufacturing in Nigeria? This is the roadmap. You don't start manufacturing cars. It's never done. You start with commercial vehicles. Which one is simpler to make? They are boxes. Look at your buses. When you look at a bus, you are looking at a bus. It's a box with empty inside where people are going to sit. The parts are fewer and they are larger and they are easier to make. In those days, Anamco in Anambra, in Apapa, you have Bedford by UAC. In Ibadan, you have Leland. In Bauchi, you have Steer Motors. In Kano, you have Fiat. That was the beginning that we lost. Those industries were supposed to germinate after 10 years before you now go into cars. The investment of making trucks is very small comparable to cars. Cars keep changing every 2 years. And sophistication. You have high investment. So when you want to start vehicular manufacturing and you want to succeed, you start with commercial vehicles, the big ones. When you are doing that, you will be setting up part supply. The CKD that you manufacture, that you mentioned just now, I did CKD in 1980. So if I want to manufacture air conditioning now, I should go back to, after 40 years, go back to CKD. It's a wrong, obsolete approach. The approach is you start with parts. Let my company, UTL, standardize on making heat exchangers for people who want to make AC. Let some people start making compressor. Let some people start making motors for making air conditioning.
Isn't that still manufacturing, but components?
The component, the emphasis will not be on component. The reason why CKD or SKD is out of fashion is because of automation. When they want to deceive you, they said, we are assembling from CKD. We bring the raw materials as CKD from abroad. CKD is something that has already been produced fully because the factory is in automation. You can't stop it. It has to go through the line to the finishing line and becomes a car. So when it becomes a car, you now dismantle it, you knock it down into parts. Are you with me? Into parts, and then repackage it and send it to Russia to reassemble. Look at the cost, both in freight, both in manpower. So it's not visible. It's out of fashion. You now have robotics. You have everything. You put the raw material at the door. You get the finished product at the end of the door because of automation. So technically, CKD is dead. The government should concentrate on people who are interested in setting up factory for components.
Okay, so talking about the components, are we talking of assemblage? Okay, plants where these components will be assembled, or we are talking of, factories where these components will be manufactured?
Okay.
Do we have the raw materials the way with her?
Yes. Let me give you a simple corollary to CKD. There are different levels of manufacturing. Different levels. One of them is SKD. This is just remove the screws and bring it and screw it back. One of them is CKD. Remove the parts separate and put it back. Another one where Nigeria can start is called pre-cut. The pre-cut will come in flat sheet. All you have to do is to press it and bring out the component. The body of a car, for example. The roof, the body, can come flat sheet, cut into size, and you just press it. And once you press it, the shape changes. It becomes it's not more flat, it's already shaped. So Nigeria can start with that level. Of course, with other things also, pre-cut. If I cut it to sizes. But here, you will not add value by shaping it up. So it departs from CKD. It's called pre-cut approach. That pre-cut approach is faster when you want to develop. When we talk about CKD, you'll be there for forever. The man who wants to bring CKD here, let me try and bring in some kind of education here. Look at Toyota. For every 7 cars in Nigeria out of 10 on Nigerian road is Toyota. I like to work with Toyota. This year, Toyota will produce 9.7 million cars all over the world. That's a lot of power. Logistics, management, finance. We want to work with such companies. Give them all the concession and incentives that they need and start from pre-cut. They will come. When you start talking about CKD, they will never answer you. They will be making cars is a clandestine operation. It's not an operation you expose to everybody. You will have done your homework. You call the manufacturer. This is the incentives I want to give you. This is what I want from you. Design a local car without all the sophistication. We can add sophistication later with basic that will be affordable to an average Nigerian. So you call Toyota. When Toyota announced that they will be producing 9.7 million units a year, they have surpassed General Motors in the US. The founder or the president of Toyota, Mr. Toyoda, had a little dance in his office, and they were asking him, why is he dancing? He said they have passed General Motors in terms of market size. So, such companies with such profile are the ones we need to sit down with and work it. That is how Nigerian can jumpstart or leapfrog the economy. Don't worry about, somebody is saying he wants to assemble. Forget about assembly. There's nothing like that anymore.
How do we deal with this penchant for foreign things in Nigerians? Nigerians, they tend to appreciate anything that is imported more. Even when the government is trying to sell it to the people who appreciate locally made goods, that penchant seems to be there. The taste for imported goods, for foreign things is still there.
That's a very deep question. And I appreciate you for bringing that question to the fore. You cannot force anybody to dispense with his income without an incentive. You can preach from morning till evening. Buy made in Nigeria, buy made in Nigeria. It's good for you to. It's a slogan. There has to be a system. There has to couple with several layers of concession and interventions and incentives to draw the buyer to buy made in Nigeria. You cannot preach it. Nobody will respond to it because that's a competing product. And Nigerians are widely traveled. They are very exposed, deeply exposed and sophisticated. So if you give them anything without an incentive, they're not going to look at you.
Paint a picture in this regard.
Right. That's all that our concept of consumer credit is based on. Is to help move inventories of made in Nigerian goods.
How does it work?
It works in this way. You have to look at various levels of incentives to lure people to buy made in Nigeria. The government in the last 2 or 3 administrations They actually have a broad objective and good intention to develop the economy, to create jobs, and diversify economy away from oil. Manufacturers have 4 key cardinal areas that he has to look into. 1, the manufacturer must be able to scale. Scales means that you must mass produce. Scale very high. Don't produce in batches because the cost of production will be very high. 2, you reduce deliberately your cost of production. There are technologies that are repetitive. Whether you run the machine for 1 hour, you run it for 20 hours, it's the same cost. So you deliberately lower your cost of production. 2, you must have high velocity movement of your inventory. That is, the way you produce the inventory, the product must be rolling, must be going out of the window. You're converting it back to money, you pay the banks back, you get your own profit, it has to go. Because the moment the inventory is sluggish or sits for a while, the whole thing will collapse. Number 3 is that your product must be competitive. Number 4, must be competitive. That is, when you bring imported product and you build made in Nigeria, even if the made in Nigerian quality is not as high as imported one, but once the price is influenced, tendencies that people will go out of patriotism, out of so many reasons, they would like to try made in Nigerian good. So, but all these 4 principles that I have highlighted, that's one thing that will drive them. It's called consumer credit. And intelligently, well-crafted consumer credit program, large one that will affect me and you. Even if I'm earning minimum wage of 30,000 naira per month, I will be living as if I'm earning 100,000. That's what consumer credit is all about. Because the man that is producing is selling. The moment he produces, because the buyer, his disposable income has been enhanced. He has access to credit. So his needs are there. And that brings social stability. The insecurity we are talking about will be reduced. The corruption we are talking about in the system will be reduced. The workers will face their jobs diligently. In the States, if you lose your job, they say you are fired. It's true. Fired in the sense that naked fire is being put on your body, because everything you have is tied to your job. So that you need to work diligently, be prompt to your job, have seriousness, and a little bit of honesty.
There is this general belief that in the Southwest, for instance, the industries of those days have become religious centers. Is it true?
It is true, but it all can be revived. The structures are there. Every one of them can be brought back to life with the system I've just described now. Let's take, for example, somebody whose father had been producing something. Let's take one of our serious indigenous manufacturers, like late Chief Adebo Ali, who was known for National Fan and Fridge and Freezer and Co. He still has his premises, whether it is listed for religious purpose or event center. All you have to do is bring in new machines, give the family some level of ownership, maybe 5 or 10%, because of their spiritual creation of their father. You deliberately give them. That's what Japanese did after Second World War. You recognize the family by giving them something. You bring in new management. You bring in new technology. And then you fly. They couple with what I have just analyzed now, that the economy will be transformed from cash and carry to a credit economy. That's how it flows. So those factories will open and it will sell. And when you are doing well as a manufacturer, tendencies are you hire more people. You bring in new machines. you will contribute more revenue, taxes. Nobody don't have to depend on oil revenue. The tax generated by manufacturer is good enough. Look at our NEPA situation. Let me just quickly go into that area. Most of our NEPA, the provision of power, is centered around domestic and residential needs. If factories start working, NEPA will make so much money. The whole of this estate, one factory can have a demand for the whole of this estate. And of course, the tariff is different from the tariff of residential. We are industry, so your tariff is higher. So cleverly, we must move in that direction.
So the country is even cheating itself.
It's cheating itself.
And not allowing industries to...
Yes, to strive.
There is this history around, the high presence of touts, the agberos.
Yes.
Especially in the southwest today and all around.
Yes.
Can you lead us into it?
The agbero is an advent of wrong government policies as related to manufacturing and agriculture. When your factories are closing down, where do you want all these guys to work? They become touts. They become agbero. I mentioned earlier that in the 80s, in the 70s, 80s, and part of 90s, before everything went down, if you go to Isolo at 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning and see the personnel entering those factories in the morning to go and work, and at 5 o'clock they're coming out, it's a population in each of those factories, in Ilupeju, in Isolo, in yes, in Apapa, they were engaged. But the moment you put in a policy and those factories were dying, those people that owns those factories will shut it down. They don't want to go out of business.
The school of thought also believe that these people were pushed out of that industry because of poor remuneration. These people who are working like jackass, as it were, that they were underpaid. That it's one of the reasons why many of them abandoned.
No, I don't subscribe to that school of thought. If I'm an industrialist and I'm producing and I'm making profit, why would I want to lay off my workers? The only way I would want to lay off a worker if I don't see a prospect of him making money. That is, if my factory is not producing optimally and I'm not enhancing my profits, or the government says this and that, and I see that. I gave you an example. When we signed joint venture with Daikin, C2 and SCOA in 1984-85 at this Federal Palace, my parents were alive. My father, my mom, my uncle. They were going to invest in my company. At that point, yes, my parents were alive in 1980, 84, 85. Daikin has already given me, because of what I have done in the first 2 years of production, 1980 to 1982, a credit line of $1 million. I can bring in products, CKD at that time, for $1 million and sell. That's how we corner the market. When they saw that I was determined to be a major manufacturer in Nigeria, it's cheaper for them to join me at that point rather than waiting till 10 years' time when I'm fully grown and the share value of my company had gone up. So they proposed a joint venture, which we signed in Federal Palace in 1985, 84, 85. But the moment we did that, and we are going to take money from IMF, and they saw that the market is going to open, everybody flee. They said, Mr. Abdul, we want to wait and see if your government is going to flow with the IMF.
How capital intensive is manufacturing? The belief is that, especially here in the Southwest, these those players in the manufacturing sector, the belief is that there must be people with deep pockets, and that is not for people who don't want to play at the big league. You must have the money, the capital must just be there. How true is it? Is it born out of a lazy mentality, or it's actually true?
Thank you. Factories, manufacturing are on different levels, different scales. There are factories in China that are not more than my living room. It depends on your entry point, where you want to start. You see, all these tailors that makes our clothes now, once you have a good textile mill functioning in Nigeria, they can now mass produce this thing, package it and export it. Even from this living room. So it depends on your entry point. I was fortunate to have met Daikin, who is in air conditioning balance, or in air conditioning definition. Daikin is like Rolls Royce in air conditioning. So I quickly realized in my interaction with them that whatever you want to do, you start. Don't wait or consider that, I have to have deep pocket. You can start small, and fortune can smile on you. When I started, I had some small resources of my own. My parents were supportive. But the moment that Daikin saw that I was serious in my intention to make these things in Nigeria, they provided $1 million. Back then, in 1984-85. 1982, they actually put in $1 million through the former IMB.
How true is this belief that in Asian countries, the Asian tigers, deliberately, just as you talked of national ambition,
yes,
they made it a point of policy that each family must be known for a particular product. And so you just must go into production. You've interacted with them. Is it true? Or would you advise the government come up with such a template?
Every family has a history. My grandfather was called Abudu First Alashoke in Ijebu-Ode. What did he do? My father's father. He used to go to Ilorin to go and buy raw material for his Ashoke manufacturing in Ijebu-Ode. Remember this thing they throw like this, and they push it, they throw it like this.
Some are still on it.
Some are still on it. He has it. So that's why how influenced I was as a young boy. My father was a Muslim, my mother was a Catholic. And each time we go to visit Grandpa in Ijebu, we go to that mini place where he does those things. He will put the thread somewhere here, almost to the kitchen, and then they will start to choo. So as a young boy, it triggers my, inquisitiveness. That Baba. So he was teaching me how to do it during our holidays. That is the first impact I had, about making things. So when it now came to issue of Daikin, it was easy for me to assimilate and to visionize and think big. That was what happened. Here, every family has an attribute. Whether you are a drummer or, look at the generations, you see drummers there. Whether you are, I know families in Lagos, some of the Williams, since 18-something, they've been producing doctors. Some lawyers. So it's not peculiar to certain part of the world. What is wrong here is that we have not been able to capture, such tendencies. It's left for everybody doing his own thing. There's no government or no group of people that will allow people to do their own thing. There has to be direction. There has to be vision. There has to be discipline. Part of why the Asian Tigers succeeded was that there's serious discipline. High discipline. If I tell you I'm coming here at 8 o'clock, it is Japanese. By 7:30, they are already somewhere close to me. 2 minutes to 7 or to 8, they are already in my parlor. And manufacturing can shape that. Because when you industrialize, time becomes an essence.